TV50 Business Update is brought to you by the Detroit Free Press, Michigan's great morning tradition.
Good evening. Tonight in business news from the 10 o'clock news center.
Executive compensation is now a major issue at the Chrysler UAW bargaining table. Details of Lee Iacocca's 1987 package angers the union.
Consumer prices jumping more than 1% last month, the biggest inflationary increase in more than a year.
And Wall Street drops in the day's trading, losing 14 points. More tonight. Now this.
After more than 2 weeks, that tense Kuwaiti hijacking is now over. Details tonight.
We'll have those stories, much more information for you tonight on the 10 o'clock news.
TV50 News Update is brought to you by your Greater Detroit Chrysler Plymouth dealers.
Good evening. Some of the stories we're following for you on tonight's 10 o'clock news.
Controversy surrounds the shooting death of an off-duty Detroit police officer. Why did EMS take him to one hospital when another was much closer? Could he have been saved?
Detroit City Council cracks down on those realistic-looking toy guns. Those details coming your way.
And relief for hostages on board that hijacked Kuwaiti jet. Their ordeal finally over. More news tonight. Now this.
With the U of M picks a new athletic director, his is certainly a familiar face in these parts.
Join us for those reports and much more tonight on the 10 o'clock news. An off-duty police officer is dead, shot in the chest. Could he have been saved if EMS had taken him to the closest hospital?
Lee Iacocca's 1987 compensation, a major topic of discussion in today's contract talks.
The U of M finally picks a new athletic boss, and his name will certainly ring a bell.
These reports and more right now on the 10 o'clock news.
A Detroit police officer is dead tonight, fallen by a bullet to the chest. The tragedy creating a storm of controversy with the man's family, Detroit's EMS, and two hospitals caught in the middle. Good evening, everyone.
Many questions remain unanswered tonight in this case, but the answer to the most important one remains a mystery at this hour. 31-year-old Paul Dunbar Jr. killed early this morning on the city's west side. He was off duty at the time. Police are being very close-lipped about this case, releasing very few details. But the tragic fact remains that the EMS ambulance transporting the critically wounded Dunbar to the hospital failed to take him to the nearest hospital. Authorities are reviewing taped communications between that EMS unit and the two hospitals to find out why. That raises the question, could Dunbar have been saved if EMS had taken him to the closest emergency room, thus saving precious minutes? Tonight, 10 o'clock news reporter Margot Williams with more details.
It was in this West Side neighborhood where an off-duty Detroit police officer was shot. Police say it's not known why the two-year police veteran Paul Dunbar Jr. was in front of a house in the 3400 block of Atkinson near Dexter around 3 a.m. this morning. The officer was taken to Detroit Receiving Hospital where he died of a gunshot wound to the chest. But the confusion and controversy began earlier when an EMS unit radioed Henry Ford Hospital, which was closer to the location where the officer was shot.
They were asked to hold on. The physician in charge then came back. The particular call was disconnected for some reason. Upon that happening, the physician in charge of the emergency department began to assemble trauma surgeons and medical staff to adequately treat the patient. We received another phone call from EMS. We acknowledged that request. Yes, bring him in. We have a team standing by to treat this patient. EMS made the decision at that point to reroute the patient to Detroit Receiving.
We never got a confirmation that we could go in. We thought it was closed at the time.
Ford Hospital officials later admitted they did not receive confirmation that EMS had received their message. Meanwhile, Detroit Mayor Coleman Young says his office is reviewing the tapes and won't comment until the investigation is complete.
This is a serious matter, a very serious matter, and not one to go off on half-cocked.
Beginning May 17th, a new policy will be instituted that requires all hospitals to accept patients with life-threatening emergencies, even if they are being rerouted. Margot Williams, 10 o'clock news.